All right, finally. Thanks for your patience, everybody.
It's not a cool week.
Just when you think you got it all figured out, we don't. But at least it was a new little glitch here. Made it look normal to you, but it wasn't, so. And we still have a little problem. The Zoom people can't see us here in the room because that camera won't cooperate back there. But we got to start at some point, so. Seems like we're doing something. Anyway. Welcome, everybody. You found your way into the University of Lowbrow Astronomers Monthly Meeting. I can't believe it's the June meeting already. It's where we just did January, but here we are. So I am Charlie Nielsen, the president of the club. We have a few other officers that we'll get some reports from later on. And right up front, I'd like to mention that the Detroit Observatory needs this room starting at 9:30. There's another group. So we're gonna have to kind of keep that in mind and hurry along. I think we'll be okay, but if I start kind of pushing, that's why. So with that, something a little different tonight, and that is we're gonna have several of our astrophotographers do little showings of their work. We've actually got, I believe it was 7, if everybody's here, people lined up. We're gonna give them 10 minutes when they start showing it, and that's it. At 10 minutes, I annihilate. So anyway, I do have a little stopwatch here, so I can't count them down. But first, I'm gonna have them just do a little brief intro of themselves real quick, just so you maybe be a little more familiar with them. Ask them to make it real quick and everything, and then when they say go, I start the stopwatch, and they start their little show. Our first one up, as you can see, is one of our vice presidents, Brian Ottum. Brian, can you tell us a little something about yourself? Maybe we don't.
Well, I became an astrophotographer when the camera had the little trash button on the back. Life became so much easier because before that, you had to wait and see, did it turn out? Remember that? And usually it didn't turn out. And so being an astrophotographer in the age of film was hard. So I'm going to share my screen here. And so, Charlie, are we going to have everybody go through their introductions or just?
No, just when they come on.
Okay.
So
let me know. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I only have 5 slides. So I am nice and simple.
Can you maximize that though, Brian?
Yes, sir. Thank you. How's that?
Yeah, there you go. Okay. And if you're ready.
All right.
Go.
And so I enjoyed taking pictures of space, but I really enjoy sharing it with people. And so some of the most fun times has been sharing it with people, the public, in person. And the picture in the upper left is with Amy at the Ann Arbor Library when we did our Big Moon event in May. And you can see the pedal cab with the drunken people in the background. Isn't that hilarious? But anyhow, I do enjoy that, and so I love taking pictures and showing people. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see, you know, some of the deep sky stuff that I love to do. So we start with something close, the moon, 235,000 miles away, and I purchased a Moxitov from a fellow Lowbrow Ani, and it's a very nice scope. And I just had a nice sharp picture of the moon. I figured, hey, that's a nice picture to start with. It's the moon. It's always there. And just a quick shot. And then I got a shot from my backyard. This was the North America and the Pelican Nebula. And this was one of the longest exposures I've ever had. This was like 3 hours. And I never go 3 hours. I'm a very impatient person. I'm lazy. I want to make it easy. And so, yeah, I used the Sharp Cap software. And if I don't use up all my time, people can ask me the technical questions. But this is basically 3 hours in my backyard here in Saline. It has a lot of light pollution. And so I was ecstatic with this image because I was going to name my observatory the Prison Glow Observatory because I have a prison nearby. So, but anyhow, that was just taken last summer, about a year ago this month. And there is a shot I got from up north in Michigan of the M81 and 82, and this is about an hour and a half of images, and it's a 6-inch f2.8 reflector and a ZWO camera, and I'm doing the live stacking, and I don't spend much time tweaking. I don't spend much time photoshopping, and that's what's so nice nowadays with this technology. The exploding galaxy on the right is tons of fun to see all those exploding, those red things you see coming out from the center. That's an active galactic nucleus. And so that was a lot of fun. And then we had a bucket list item in April. We saw a total eclipse. Then we had another bucket list item in May. We had the fantastic Northern Lights. And so Lowbrow, Adrian, and I drove to Canada, and this is what we saw. And we're looking up here at Antares. I'm sorry, Arcturus. That's Arcturus up there. You can see the Big Dipper. And what's kind of cool about this video is that the scary cloud is coming in from the lower right. So that was straight overhead. I've never had a Northern Lights display where I could see things overhead. So that was spectacular. And the last thing I'm going to show you is the Northern Lights display looking straight north. So this is basically 2 hours of Northern Lights. And give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if we're... Jeff, are we okay?
You're good.
Except you gotta hit the play button. There you go.
There we go. I couldn't believe it. I was putting my warm clothes on and I got out of the car and the Northern Lights were overhead. And I looked down to the south, they were south of me. It was amazing. We were at the shore of Lake Huron at the Pinery Provincial Park, east of Port Huron, about an hour's drive. And this is about an hour and a half's worth of Northern Lights, and it was amazing. And shortly you can start to see them. They calmed down and they stayed quiet, and then they came back, and it looked like popcorn. And the city on the right there is Kincarding, I think. And up on the right you can see Vega. And at the lower left you see Capella. And we could see the clouds coming, and we were hoping the clouds would stay away. The clouds stayed away until about 1:30 or 2. And you can see the popcorn effect here at the end of it. So anyhow, that was it. It was a special evening, and it was a special occasion. And I appreciate everybody looking at my stuff.
Thank you. That only took you 6 minutes and 17 seconds.
Okay, I got time for
Seemed
questions.
longer, didn't it?
Any questions?
Yeah, go.
What were the total exposures, and what was the exposure info for that last Aurora movie?
The Aurora movie was with a 14 millimeter ultra wide angle, and so I could go 40 seconds, I think 45 seconds. Each subframe was f2.8.
How many frames?
Hour and a half's worth.
Okay.
And again and again and again and again for every 45 seconds. I just kept shooting.
Question, Brian. Which software did you use to process that video?
The video doesn't have a whole lot of processing. Photoshop nowadays, all you got to do is take a time lapse, which means just setting up your camera and just just taking images. Right at Peach Mountain, you could do this. Right, just take images, and then you just it can be JPEGs. They don't have to be raw. Right, and then you put them in a folder. And then in Photoshop, you open up Photoshop, you open up the first image, and you click on the first one, and then you click on the button that says image sequence. And then you're off to the races. That's all you got to do. And then Photoshop treats it as a time lapse. And from that, I did very little tweaking. I probably turned up the color intensity a little bit. That's it. I mean, I did almost no processing of that video. Now, I will tell you that my camera is sensitive to hydrogen alpha, so I get a little bit more of the pinks and the reds than a normal camera.
More questions? Okay, thanks again, Brian.
I'm setting the standard to use less than my total 10 minutes. Thank you.
Grab the next stop.
Oh, let's see what's good next. If you
I
can
just wanted
unpair,
to
Brian.
get you got the files.
Who wants to go next? Anybody? Anybody?
Anybody want to volunteer?
Otherwise, you're gonna have to put up with me.
Okay, well, the next one in there then.
Can you see that in Zoom? Brian?
Yeah, I can see your screen. It looks great.
Okay.
Okay, little
Well,
intro, Jeff.
I am that guy. I'm somewhat normalized now without hat, sweat, and well, telescopes as well. I got into the astrophotography thing, I think 2017, maybe. And it was a process of learning. I had a couple of mentors along the way. Brian is one of them on the Photoshop side of things. And I'll mention the other one later on. Anyway, I thought this was kind of a good forum to kind of show all the good, the bad stuff, the ugly, and kind of showing them my journey and learning curve through the thing. So,
Are you ready?
yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You should hit the timer.
All right. You're up now.
So in that case, since I got a little bit extra time, the photo on the left is the new Lunt, and that's kind of my newest telescope. The second one in the middle there is an Orion 120 ST or something. It's a $250 telescope. That's the one I was referring to back in April. This is my ultra cheap setup, and you can see that marvelous clipboard sort of with the glow and everything. And then there's the glamorous side of astronomy on the right side there. When it gets colder, I got snow gear and all that one day and got out my father-in-law's farm. So they're kind of fun, and well, they're goofy looking pictures, not suitable for anybody but you guys. So feel lucky. I got started with a ZWO 120 MC camera. It was, I think, like $150 camera. It was on sale from $200. Nowadays, they don't even make this stupid thing anymore. Sharp cap was about the only thing that I could get to work. And this was my very first image of Jupiter on my 8-inch. And processing was absolutely terrible. The stacking was terrible. And you could see all that wonderful pixelation on there. But I was thrilled to capture IO or whatever satellite that happens to be. But you can see the color calibration is all way off on the right side here. Reds and greens are all over the place. It was a mess. But luckily, I've gotten better at that. And yeah, I got it's a little process looking. It's weird. It doesn't look like that on my slide, but anyway, that's the latest bit of Jupiter, which normally it doesn't look as bad as that. But see, it got a lot more of the cloud lines. They think that this was maybe one of those asteroids that hit, and you can see the streaks of the clouds. A lot more software is involved, a lot more sharpening. I got a different camera that does a lot better resolution. That's very disappointing. It didn't look good on the screen. It's really too bad. Again, my 8" it's a planet killer. It's the way to go. And I discovered with this photo, this is the first one I did with WinJupos, which is a derotation software. And of course, Brian's hints on Photoshop really helped with some of the colors and curves. Moving on Saturn, you can see how dismal that looked, complete with these wonderful captioning lines and borders that I come up with. Again, that was the 120 in SharpCap. Learned how to stack with a better stacker software, this Auto Stacker 3, which you can still get. I have a link on the new website under the, I think it's under resources or something. It's a software thing, and you can download it and use it. It's still probably best of breed. And I got better at Saturn. This one looks slightly better than the Jupiter. It's still pixelated, terrible. Anyway, same
Looks
better
much
camera.
better on this screen up, our PC screen.
Even the,
there,
even
yeah.
on my screen on the laptop, it looks better. I used a three times Barlow on this one to kind of experiment how much I can really magnify with it. And it does help because Saturn's kind of small when you're doing captures, but it brought out some of those subtle lines, like up in the top, the cloud lines in the middle and stuff. That 3 times was worth it. And of course, better stacking, better, I used Registacks for the wavelet stuff. The techniques just improved as you go on, like everybody's will. This is my best lunar photo, which actually did come out really good on screen. This is actually done with 2 photos, and I stitched them together by hand. I realize I don't like doing that very much. As a mosaic, it's really nasty, but it can be done, and if you're careful and have a mouse that doesn't jiggle too much. It was just a couple of test photos I did with the 183. That ASI 183 is my planetary camera, and the resolution very high, and it captures all kinds of details. It's a fantastic planetary camera, and I bought it frankly because the resolution was very close to the resolution I was going to get on my telescope. So I kind of mated the camera to the telescope for this, this is my first result with that. We're like, wow, this thing is really something. Nope, that's just straight. This one is interesting. The club was actually out at Independence Park in Canton, and we caught an ISS transect, which if you look carefully, there's these little regular black splotches down here. I did do a movie of it, but with only 15 frames, it's not very impressive. But that was kind of a fun one to take, and I put a lot of work into the home thing, so you got to see it here tonight. Sorry, but it was a lot of fun. My everybody I showed it to that is not in astronomy, like kind of like, okay. It's a big ho hum, like, but you know what went into this stupid thing? That's part of the fun of the astrophotography. I've also I was kind of into the planetary thing for solid, because with an SET there's only so much of the DSO we can really get. And I managed to track your Neptune first. That's on the left. I spotted it. I thought I was there. I went probably about 3 months later, and I found it again. And I had my cameras ready and all that for it. And you can kind of see a little bit of the sun, the sunny side there. Uranus I did at Independence Park with the flyby. It was a lot harder to do for some reason. It kept blowing out the image or being completely dim. It's very weird. And this Mars photo was taken shortly after the sandstorm year. The year of sand, a lot of people say. And those were just fun ones, and it was probably the best resolution on Mars. Yes?
Does Mars have an aura around it?
No, that's something that's the screen and the projectors are doing tonight.
Yeah.
Those don't appear on mine, but well, they must be there somehow.
Yeah.
And then when I got what I call the cold cam, because it's that black Orion scope, I started doing more DSO work. Deep space objects, for those who are in here. This is my first one with the old 120 camera, and you can see the resolution's garbage. There's a ton of noise, and when they say it's a planetary only camera, they mean it. It is not meant for that, but it did capture this central core of the Orion image. Once I got the Polcan, which is just a refractor, it's a F6, I believe, F5, something like that. And basically did more processing, more work in the background. This came out, and I was just utterly pleased with all the cloud detail and whatnot that I managed to get off of that. And this is taken, I should say to everybody, this is all taken from my driveway in Tsahelnik. These are not from dark sky sites. And so there is some processing to get rid of, nasty aspects. This one I caught before I got my equatorial mount, and it's the Western Veil Nebula. And my friend, one of my early mentors in this whole little journey, Shannon Morgan, Templeton Morgan down in North Carolina. When I first showed her this photo, she was ticked. It's like, the heck did you get that photo? I've been trying on that thing for years. And I got round stars.
Nice.
I got good color. I think I did 40-second exposures for probably 10-15 minutes or something, and just put it together. But this is on an AZ mount. It's an AZ mount. The Ioptron is a very fine Alt-AZ mount. Brian used it for his EPA for a while. And I discovered AstroPixel processor, which really helps pull things together. It's an exceptionally nice piece of software. This is one of the ones, this is that mount I was telling you about. It's an Alt-AZ mount, super easy to use, as easy as your, Celestron Nexstars and stuff, but it has super amount of precision, and it's able to carry the weight of that SCT. And this is just one that I was plinking around with some DSOs, and I finally got it. And I believe, so these are 20-second frames, and there's 131 of them, and this is with a focal reducer. But I was pleased as heck to get the pillars of creation done here. I got round stars even with this telescope setup. This one is kind of a demonstration of the software more than anything. This was done with Deep Space Stacker, and it's the dumbbell nebula. And you can see with the Alt-AZ mount, it was utterly confused with the rotation and didn't know what to do with it. It was just terrible. And that's when I discovered AstroPixel Processor, which you see that this is the same raw file too. And this software did a much better job of stacking and bringing that all in. And the reason is that you can see the rotations here in the photo. APP is good at doing mosaics. And so they're doing some kind of plate solving while they're stacking. And this is one of those very representative photos I thought that was it was really interesting to see the difference in how just the software handled things. Because they both came from the same raw file. And of course, you have to take pictures of galaxies. This is the first decent galaxy picture I took of the Andromeda. I liked it because of the dust lanes.
Yeah.
I get a lot of vignetting because of the Ypsilanti has its own fog. So you have to kind of get around that. And this is the better picture of the Clarke. You can see with my clipboard set up and all the wires and stuff. It's kind of a mess, but it has the strange habit of actually working most of the time, and it takes pretty good photos. It's supposedly not a good, astrophotography telescope, but it's got cheap glass in it. That's the bottom line. So if you're willing to put up with correcting for bright stars and halos, other than that, it's a fine setup, and it didn't cost me a whole lot of money. Almost. And of course, nobody can do this without taking pictures of clusters. I can't remember which one this is, but I'm pretty sure this was M13. So all the stars they're just pretty to look at. That was one of my first deep space things I really loved. And these are a couple more nebulas that I did with the SCT. This one on the right is a Trifid nebula, and it's worth noting that's what you get when you don't take enough frames. This was only about 15 frames worth because I got cold and I wanted to go in. But if I'd had more, there would have been much better color depth, more resolution, things like that. But when you short shift yourself on the number of frames, that's what you get. And this was the Omega nebula here, which it kind of popped out in the finder, so I was like I had to go. And well, with the lunch, you can't help but take good solar pictures with the thing. And this is with that 183 camera again, which it went dead for the eclipse. And this, I didn't even notice it till I was putting together a presentation, but these lines gradually developed into solid yellow and red lines. So this was kind of evidence that the camera was going bad. I've since sent it in for repair. It's back. It's working wonderfully. And last, I have to make a mention of our planetary processing workshop coming up on the 11th. Austin and Austin Edminster of the Detroit Observatory and Amy Cantu are kind of helping me put things together. And it's just going to be a workshop. You don't have to have any images of your own. We've got some RAWs that we're going to have. And basically just sign up and come here on the 11th. And we'll run through what we got to do for planetary processing. I got some information sheets up on the table. And with that.
Thank you, Jeff. I didn't stop, and when I picked this up, I realized it had already gone over 10, so you took 12 minutes and 27 seconds. So there should be some, did we ever figure out what the penalty was?
No worries.
We'll probably get over.
He'll probably cut my salary.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, pay decrease.
So who do we got next? Trying to go through Ed's.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's do that. Ed was, had something come up at the last minute, Ed Hernandez, and was not able to join us, but he did send in his pictures, so I'm gonna show him.
Okay, where is the presentation? This new
Slideshow?
Yeah. Well, there it is.
Have a little picture of the screen there on the top bar.
Oh, in the top
Way
right.
over here to the left.
Over.
Oh, there it is. I use Google
Whoa.
stuff. You want to do that one or? I don't really know.
Yeah, because you can't join us, I think he just wanted us to show
Yeah.
his ability.
Okay.
And we don't really know anything about it, but here's, it looks like it's all fine. I'm just gonna talk about here. So he always wanted a DSL camera, which he finally bought in 2016. He wanted to get into astronomy, but did not have a telescope, not to mention any astrophotography gear of any sort for capturing what he would be seeing. He searched the internet for astrophotography with kit lenses. He went to YouTube channel Nightscape Images, it's like watch videos. A tutorial called Sequator. And this fit his needs exactly. He elected to use minimal equipment that he already had. And this is his equipment. It's like a Nikon D3400. And an AFP Nikkor 18 to 55 millimeter lens. Slick U6000 tripod. Has anybody heard that one? It's new to me. ProMaster ML-L3 wireless remote shutter control for Nikon. No tracker. Interesting. Autofocus on faraway source. I'll just kind of read this. I don't have to read it. I'll read it and then figure you did too. So. That's good. Don't touch the ring rats. And he did mention don't touch the focus ring by accident.
Yeah. So it's like red thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's something to think about. Wind gust, huh? think he's gonna get the pictures here, but. But we like laser and fast. Okay, here we go. Nice. I've got Jupiter down there. Awesome, sad. See the star looks like a dash.
Is that, it right in the, yeah, I was gonna say like the northeast. Is that,
Down in here.
we're just gonna have to hop in and explain this.
Sure. He doesn't mean this stuff. No.
Better. Up at the top, left. Go down, just there we go.
This one?
Yeah.
It's pretty round on this screen. Oh, well.
We got those other two, they don't,
Yeah.
maybe the one, right.
Okay.
That's a really nice,
Yeah, oh, that's nice. That's really pretty. Alrighty. Okay.
Still have 6 minutes left, Chair.
That's true. Questions? I don't know answers.
Well, we asked the question, we drove to Saturday, couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. About, I see Marcus hiding back there. You wanna come up? Sure. All right, Marcus Clarke. Sure. Tell us a little about yourself, Marcus, before I start the dreaded watch.
Well, retiree, of course, not of course, retired from Ford. And this presentation will pretty much tell you my journey into astrophotography. And let's get to the next. We do that. Oh, use the arrow key, okay. I've been involved in photography from the age of 12. Did a lot of photo, military as well. College. Was a photo officer, reconnaissance stuff. In 2020, the pandemic struck and I was quarantined and entered the world of astrophotography. And nothing else to do. Lockdown. So my first entry into astrophotography was using a D700 Nikon camera with 600mm lens, Skywatcher tracker, and I did some deep sky photography with that. Then I advanced a little, about a year, and I ended up with this CWO guide scope, guide camera, and a William Optics Z81 telescope with a 8/10 reducer flattener. And I added an AGQ5 mount, and I bought a used D750 camera. And I did some deep sky photography. And with a little nudging from talking to Jeff, others, that if you're gonna photograph planets, you need a big reach. So I decided to invest in the Celestron. And I bought a mount to put it on. I use a ZWO 294 MC Pro camera for planets. And all of my guiding, I've been supported with an ASI Air. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that has been great. Plus stellarium. Before I go out and shoot, I look at stellarium and see what's in the area where it's not going to be covered by trees, my neighbor's trees, and what have you. So all of the shots that I show you here, shot in my backyard. This was the hidden galaxy IC 392.
It's not hidden anymore.
You're right.
That's-
This is one of my early shots of the Andromeda, M31. A global cluster, a little out of focus there, but M15 is the best I could do at the time. Spiral Galaxy M74. And my attempt at Orion M42. And I use Photoshop for processing, Auto Stacker for stacking all the images. This is a Crab Nebula M1. You can barely make out here. This was a shot I took of the sun just using a Daystar filter with a 200mm lens and the 750 camera. It's a Cigar Galaxy M82. Spindle Galaxy M102. See there, left quadrant. And the Heart Nebula, IC 1805. This was my attempt at Jupiter with the Celestron and captured a couple of the moons. Whale Galaxy, NGC 4631. North America Nebula, NGC 7000. Solar eclipse, my front yard. I had great difficulty getting my camera and lens and everything to line up with the eclipse. But that's one of the shots. Thank you.
All kind of questions.
Oh,
These were all taken from your yard?
from my yard, I live in Superior Township, and certainly use Photoshop and other aids in order to get rid of the light pollution. I have two neighbors that keep their lights on all night. And that's, one of them turned his light off, the other one, not yet. Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mark. Okay. Dmitri, you ready?
I am sure many of you already know me. As for my introduction, I guess all that needs to be said, I'm the youngest one in the room. I've only been doing this for 5 years. And that's just a photo of me with my normal scope and then a solar scope that was lent to me. I started off in 2019 with this little Costco scope that I had for probably 2 or 3 years at that point. Once I figured out how to use the focuser, it was pretty fun. I mostly did visual astronomy for that period, mostly on the moon, because you really couldn't see anything else with the 70mm aperture. I bought after that, during the pandemic, a third planet optics 6-inch f6. I can highly recommend that scope. It's the best scope I've ever bought. And then I started getting into more astrophotography because I thought, hey, I'm looking at these things. I should have photos to share with my friends. And so that's the moon. That's NEOEYES. I'm sure you all remember NEOEYES. And then that is my setup. iPhone astrophotography I did for 2 or 3 years, and I pretty much pushed it to its limits. Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, and then that's 13 minutes of integration on Whirlpool. That's the conjunction. And I think that's the only good image I ever took with the iPhone. I just included for that. But yeah, there's me with the scope, and then it's Pleiades. I soon joined the club and started getting more serious into astrophotography. This photo of Saturn is through the McMath with my phone, and then this photo of Jupiter was taken here. We had a little excursion, what's it, last year. Me, Adrian, and former member Tony Licata, we brought out his astro camera to see what we could do with McMath. And this was one exposure. This wasn't stacked. This is just one exposure that was barely processed. And yeah, we're hoping to do more stuff with that in the future. This is also some stuff from the McMath. So that's the Sombrero Galaxy. That's the cigar. And yeah, this is both with the phone, by the way. And you can pull out a good amount of detail from that. This I took M13. Yeah, 13, right? Yeah. I took this at Mr. Okada's place. This I think is 4 minutes. I think. This is my Crab Nebula. What surprised me with the crab is how difficult to target it is. Because the only photos you ever see online are the like Hubble or the really good astro photos. And once I actually started to take photos, I realized, oh, this isn't going to be a Orion thing. And what I love about this photo is you can actually kind of see the disc around the pulsar. Yeah. And this is, I think, 30 minutes. I think a Nikon D5600 and the 6-inch. Most of my photos are going to be either the iPhone and the 6-inch or the D5600 with the 6-inch. This is the Green Comet, EZF, I think the name was. I don't remember exactly. I still have stuff to learn with processing comets because you can kind of see the star trails there. Then we have my attempt at the Whirlpool. This does not have enough data. I'm going to be honest. I still need to go back to this one and put more integration time in it. I think this is 20 minutes with the D5600, but you know, I was able to pull out color.
Yeah.
The best image I ever took was this one of the Orion Nebula. It's 40 minutes of integration time, 12 seconds a pop for the photos. Some were 15 seconds, but most are 12 seconds. When I process this,
You are only 3.5 minutes.
okay, perfect. When I took this, my computer had a 1060, and I want you to imagine 500-600 raw files through Deep Sky Stacker. My computer was processing these for I think 15 hours. And that left me with a 2 gigabyte panorama. And yeah, you don't really, the monitor doesn't really, oh, that's a lot better up there. But yeah, I tried, it was I probably spent 4 hours processing this. Just because there is so much detail and the range of exposure values. I think a tool from some of the newer guys, if you don't know, is you go into Photoshop and you do process as HDR. Ooh, it really helps. And yeah, because I think this is actually 2 images stitched together as well, because the core is just so much brighter than the surrounding nebula. Then this is my solar eclipse. I was fortunate to be able to go on a scientific trip to Illinois for my university to photograph the eclipse. And yeah, this was actually with the smaller scope. I had the 6-inch set up for people to look through visually, which I don't know how many of you got to look at the eclipse in totality visually, but obviously this single solar flare in the Hydra 5 was absolutely spectacular. And then you can zoom in, and this, I spent so much time focusing on looking at it with my own eyes, I didn't realize I needed to set the exposure on the camera. So you can see that's a bit blown out. You got a little bit of detail in that flare. But yeah, and then I think, yeah, so this I kind of saved for this meeting because I just got the scans back, and I did not scan these well. I took a light table and a friend's DSLR and took photos of these, but this is last month's Aurora on 120 film. This was before it really started, so you can kind of see a faint red glow, but not much. Then it hit, and so here you can see that red, and it gets a lot better than this. This does not look as good as it should because of how I scanned it, but you can see some of the green pillars, the red glow, and then dark side of the moon and everything. This was the space station. So the next photo also is the station, and this one I like because you can actually kind of see the structure going up. And then this is the best one I took that night. This shows the space station going into a cloud and has pretty much every color of the aurora in it. One interesting thing I noticed taking these on film is that when you take aurora with digital cameras, it shifts the green to towards more of a yellow. And then on at least Kodak Gold stock, here that's just yellow aurora, but like here it shifts the greens more to a blue, which I thought was a bit interesting. But yeah, that is everything for me. I think it was funnier earlier. I don't remember who said it, but like moving away from film, and I've gone in the opposite direction. Just I make life difficult for myself. Any questions? Okay, what's my
Okay. That took 7 minutes and 18 seconds. Okay. What plan? Okay.
I'm in class, I have this. So, I'm Glenn Kaatz, and I am not the youngest in the room. So I just had my 70th birthday a couple of months ago. But I got my first good camera at age 59. And so that would have been in 2013. And when I retired in 2016, I bought my first telescope. And then probably a couple of years later, I used to only for visual use. A couple of years later, I attached my Nikon D5600 to it and tried to take a few pictures, no tracking, no anything, just whatever the mount was able to do. I had a Celestron C-Jump mount at that time. And then the pandemic hit and I spent a lot more money. I did a lot more research, started watching lots of videos, YouTube videos, how to do this with an actual astro camera. So I bought a ASI 294 MC Pro camera. So a color camera, because I thought that would be the easiest way to start than with, you didn't have to use a bunch of filters. I did that for a year or so, and then I graduated to a monochrome camera, which I'm going to show you pictures of here. It made a big difference, but it's a lot more work. So my approach to imaging, I just outlined here. I live in Canton, Ward 7 skies in my driveway. Driveway slants down like that, so I've got to really balance the tripod real well. But I usually put it in on the north side of my house, because I have the clearest sky there, there's not a lot of trees. The backyard trees block almost every angle of view that I have. So I use now this ASI 1600 Pro monochrome camera, 1.25 inch filters, which I've listed here. I actually use this light pollution filter, the Optolong L Pro, for my luminance filter. It doesn't give as much information as a true luminance filter, but boy, it does away with a lot of gradients from light pollution. And I use mainly CWO RGB filters. I sprung for an Astrogon hydrogen alpha filter, but it's a 5 nanometer one. And then I use ZWO03 and S2 filters. I bought an electronic filter wheel, makes it a lot easier. I have an automatic focuser on one of my telescopes, which I use, and that helps. And my processing includes PixInsight as the heavy lifter, but it had a heavy learning curve to it. And I studied hard. I joined a remote telescope service, Telescope Live, and they have tutors there for your monthly fee. You can ask them questions. They provide videos, training videos. You get a whole library of things you can watch. And then I bought an online subscription to Atom Block Studios, PixInsight training program, and I've done a lot of that, but boy, it takes you weeks to get through all those videos. So I'm not a great PixInsight user now, but I know a lot more than I did a couple years ago. And then I just use the scripts that PixInsight has to process with, and it has things called scripts and processes. The scripts are just basically packages that do a bunch of processes automatically for you, and it makes it a lot easier. And I use Photoshop for final touch-ups. So I have 3 telescopes now. I started out with 1, now I've got 3. That's where all the money went. Plus all the electronic stuff to make it easier, like the cameras, the guide cameras, the mounts, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a William Optics Zenith Star 61 millimeter. And that one's great for really big nebula, like North American nebula. So this is the Hubble palette, as Dmitri mentioned. This is with HA, O3 and S2 filters, lots of exposure time. So I spend a lot of time standing in my driveway. But with an ASI Air Plus, which is what I have now, which is their next 2nd generation microcomputer, I can go in the house and sit there for 15 or 20 minutes. Then I can go back outside. It's very good in the wintertime too.
Yeah.
I can go back outside just to make sure, okay, is everything still going all right, or did something bad happen and I didn't want to waste a bunch of exposure time. So if the answer is everything is going okay and nothing bad happened, I can go back in the house again and I can watch TV for a while. Or I can take my iPad in there and just watch what's happening on the iPad. But there is a limit, a transmission limit. The wireless and the ASI Air is pretty bad. So you have to almost be within about, I'd say to be sure, 20 feet away from it. Other people can get farther, but I can't. Must not go through my garage door and my walls very well. But anyways, this one was one of my best of the North American nebula, and it got a really nice Cygnus wall right here and the Pelican Nebula over here. And I used my slightly larger telescope to take better pictures of both of those structures. I'll show you those later. So this is the Elephant Trunk Nebula, 13 hours of exposure time. So you got to be really patient. And with our skies here, I can go 2 weeks in between images. I really can. And that gets very frustrating. And I've had to wait till the next year to do some of these targets because it gets a position where you can't image it anymore. It's too low on the horizon or whatever. So I just wait till the next year to do it. Anyway, so this one barely fit into in the frame of that 61mm telescope. This is my Sol Nebula. And again, a lot of hours of integration, but I always thought this looked like a little guy running along this cliff right here. You know, and that it actually looks like, if you zoom in on it, it looks like a man running right there. One of my early Rosette Nebula photos. I probably pushed the 03 color a little too much toward the light blue. It should be a little darker blue than that, but it's acceptable, that's for sure. And the detail with these monochrome cameras is wonderful. So then I decided to yet spend another $1,000 and buy this Explorer Scientific 102mm telescope, because I had a big Celestron 8-inch, I had the little 61mm William Optics, so I needed something in the middle. So this one was in the middle. So, and I actually bought this mount too, which is a CGX Celestron CGM mount. It had a larger weight capacity. So I didn't need it for this scope, but for the Celestron 8-inch, and I'll show you all the stuff I have attached to it. It weighs 28 pounds, just the scope and all the things I have attached to it. So there's a good picture of the Pelican Nebula. It shows these big Harrow objects here, which are these jets of gas coming out from new radiation from newborn stars. And so getting close in on those kind of things was my goal, and this achieved that goal. So Pickering's triangle, actually discovered by Wilhelmina Fleming. So it's called Fleming's filamentous wisp by some people, but she worked in the lab of William Pickering at Harvard, looking at these plates, and saw this object, and she didn't get any credit for it though. But, anyways, so I did 3 different images of the Cygnus Loop area of the Veil Nebula, and this was Pickering's, and I did the Eastern Veil and the Western Veil.
2 minutes.
I'll have plenty of time. Okay. And Triangulum Galaxy with LRGB. I could have pushed the color a little more, but it's kind of washed out, but it's still, the detail came out pretty good. Flaming Star Nebula. This one I did LRGB, hydrogen alpha, and oxygen, because I wanted to bring out these clouds of blue here with O3. And the hydrogen alpha just made everything bright red like that. Okay, my last and big guy telescope, which is the Celestron 8-inch with all this gear attached to it.
Somebody had a sports economy.
I finally stopped for a while here, but so this was the ASI 1600. I don't have the filter wheel on right here, but I have an electronic filter wheel. Off-axis guider, an ASI 174 guide camera, the electronic automatic focuser, and the ASI air. And the reducer, which I bought used on eBay, it saved a couple $100. This is the true elephant trunk in the Elephant Trunk Nebula. Almost 20 hours of integration, but it really grabbed a lot of the detail out of that. And I spent a lot of time processing this just to bring out the colors. It's my Whirlpool Galaxy. This is one, I don't know if anybody here uses these RC Russ Croman Star Exterminator, Blur Exterminator, and what's the other one? There's 3 of them. anyway, a noise exterminator. I'll tell you, the blur exterminator makes non-round stars look a lot better if you have tracking errors. It really cheats a little and rounds the stars out a little bit. But it also brings out fantastic detail in the galaxy itself. That's my Crab Nebula. And that one didn't have a lot of exposure. I only did 6 hours because I only had a little window in my backyard where between the trees where I could get that. But I was happy enough with this and didn't need to spend any more time on it because it came out pretty good. And a recent one that I did, which is M94, the Kaatz galaxy, and it's got this dual ring system. You can see this faint outer ring and this brighter inner ring stuff, and then the core of the galaxy with obvious spiral arms and nice color there. This is one of my recent, this is my last one that I did. I'm working on M106 right now, but I haven't had a chance with all of the bad weather that we've had to get more than 2 of the 6 filters I'm going to use to get it done. So that's
Nice work, Wayne.
probably out of time, so there's probably no time for questions.
11
Oh,
11
sorry.
minutes, 50 seconds. That's the thing, how can we stop? You know, these things are so great.
My question, but all the equipment you bought, how do you avoid getting permanently clouded out?
That's probably why, right? Yeah.
And that leaves us, yes. Last but not least, Kevin.
Slides here.
What?
To advance through the slides.
Awesome.
My name is Ken Leitch. I retired about 5 years ago. Probably started astrophotography about 15 years ago. Probably for the first 10 years or so, I only did planetary because I live in an extremely light polluted area. And technically I'm in a Bortle 7 area. Just by the way, the Bortle scale, for those who don't know, which is probably nobody in this room, is a scale from 1 to 9, where 1 is like the darkest sky on the planet, and 9 would be like downtown Detroit or New York City or something like that. So I'm pretty close to pretty bad. And I'll show why I think I'm even closer to Bortle 8. My house is on 2 doors, 2 homes separated from a major street in Livonia. Just across that street is a mall with all their lighting. And then my backyard connects to a church parking lot. And about 5 years ago, they decided to replace their mercury vapor or sodium vapor lights with much brighter LED lights. And they keep those on all night long. So that's what I'm dealing with. But anyway, moving right along here. I'll show, basically what I want to do is show what you can do in horribly light polluted skies. This obviously is, I'll start with the low hanging fruit here. This is obviously the moon. This is a much better image. This was taken, almost all of these images were taken with a my Meade 8-inch LX90 classic scope on a wedge. Moving along here, just another moon shot, kind of featuring Tycho just above center there. Moving on now to the planets, which is really, like I said, I probably did planets for 10 years or so before I even attempted any DSOs. So we'll start with Mercury at the beginning. Nothing particularly exciting about that, other than the fact that you can see that it actually does have a phase. It's just slightly under about half.
To get Mercury at all.
Yeah, it's tricky. And then to Venus here, similar to things back in 2018. Now, starting to my more interesting ones,
this was Mars taken in 2020. I have probably got hundreds of planetary images. These are just a handful of my best ones. Moving on to Jupiter. This was one of my best, first really good images of Jupiter. Another one here. This was probably my best yet. I consider this the backside of Jupiter, even though there isn't one, but since the great red spot isn't there, I sort of consider that the back. And then I've got one more Jupiter here highlighting the great red spot again. Moving on to our ring planet. This was taken back in, when was that? In 2019, when the rings were pretty much face on.
Really got great, really.
Yeah, thank you. And then a year or two later, the rings are starting to flatten a little bit. This was Saturn at opposition in 2021. And most recently, this was last year. You can see the rings are obviously getting much closer to being edge on. Probably in another year or two, they're going to be totally edge on. They'll basically disappear for a few days. Continuing on, there's Uranus, Neptune. These aren't particularly exciting, but I needed to complete all the official 8 planets. But I grew up with 9 planets, so I have to include a little dot just a little bit to the right of the arrow there. But now moving on to the DSOs here, which are very difficult in my light pollution. There's my image of the Ring Nebula, and I'm really guilty here of overuse of all the software that's available to us, stretching and color oversaturation and noise reduction software and sharpening and all that kind of stuff. But at least it shows what's possible, even in extreme light pollution. Moving on, here's the Dumbbell Nebula, and I have to apologize there. The stars all took a red shift when I processed this to try to bring the colors out. I've subsequently learned how to avoid that problem. There's beautiful software now called StarNet, where you can take your stars out of the image and then do your processing and then bring the stars back in. But this I did before I learned how to use that or knew about it. Of course, this is one of my absolute favorite targets, Perseid Nebula. This was taken with one-shot color, ZWO one-shot color camera. And then I moved on to a monochrome camera with narrowband filters, which I was able to do that. And then I've got one more that I think is even better. Unfortunately, again, the stars are kind of overloaded here. I want to do this again now that I know how to image the stars better. But I'm still quite happy with that. This is Orion Nebula up close, and then I've got one from a much wider field of view. And then this was one of my, this was the Trifid Nebula one-shot color. So that's basically, those are real colors. Way over enhanced, of course, but I was pretty happy with that one. Here, this was the Crab Nebula with one-shot color. And then there's another one that's Crab Nebula again, one-shot color again, but processed differently. So the colors look different. But then I acquired the narrowband filters, my monochrome, which gave me this shot here, which I really love. I just love, I love color, and this one just really brings it out. Moving along here, this was my first attempt at the Crescent Nebula. And there's a little bit of nebula there and an awful lot of stars. And again, this was with the one-shot color, and then I did it again with the narrowband, which gave me that. Believe it or not, that's the same, the same target there. So I was quite pleased with that. With the narrowband filters, just get rid of more than 99% of your light pollution. So it's really wonderful. Way to go. Again, here's the North American Nebula and the Pelican Nebula, shot color. And then the next image is going to be narrowband. Yeah, there's basically go kind of back and forth.
Yeah.
And so that one came out pretty well. I was happy with that. Moving along into the Eagle Nebula, let's see the pillars of creation there. And then I got a kind of a larger image. And then I'm going, these again are one-shot color, and then I went to tried it again with narrowband imaging with my monochrome. And this next one is probably my favorite image of all time.
Oh,
That
wow.
I said, what's it do?
Oh,
Yeah, so I just love that one. Unfortunately, the stars are a little bit unnatural in this one too, but moving on, this one I just threw in this blue snowball nebula. That's a really tiny object, so it's hard to get much detail from that. And I've got the blue nebula here. And then this is a grossly overcolor saturated image of the bubble nebula. So we could throw that one in too.
got a bubble right though.
And then, yeah, I got the east and west veils here. Yeah, now this was not taken through my telescope. This was taken through I have a lens that I had on a 35mm camera like 40 years ago that I repurposed. I 3D printed an adapter so I could use my ZWO cameras with my old telephoto lens. And so that gives me a wide enough field of view to do that. M13 and Hercules. Moving along here. I've got a bunch of galaxy pictures, so I won't spend too much time. I'll just kind of flip through them. Fireworks galaxy there. Of course, that's our neighbor Andromeda. And then I've got a more colorful shot of the Andromeda galaxy here. And that's a whirlpool. I like really how much detail I was able to get. A whirlpool galaxy. This is M81 up there near Big Dipper. And there's its next door neighbor, M82. Sunflower galaxy. Back from, took that in 2020. And the Spindle galaxy. And finally, I've got the Pinwheel galaxy. This was taken with my monochrome camera, but using RGB filters. And then I added a hydrogen alpha narrowband to bring up a little more of the red in that particular object. This was from a couple months ago when we had our incredible aurora opportunity. And you can kind of see down at the bottom how much light pollution I'm dealing with. But I was still able to capture that in my backyard. And then a few years ago, I figured I'd attempt the International Space Station. I failed miserably multiple times. I finally got this image, which it really looks, it's overexposed, but you can tell it is actually it's a man-made object in the sky. And you know, considering it's going about 250 miles an hour and it's 17,000 miles away.
Oh,
This is my much better attempt at it. And yeah, so and yeah, this is quite a challenge, but I was quite pleased with the results there. Finally, this is the only image that was not taken at my house. This was taken in Columbia, Missouri back in 2017. And, I was not able to get to the totality here, although I did capture like 99% of it from Livonia, this past one, but this one, I was there in
You
Columbia.
know, it's interesting, a couple of prominences there are almost in the same positions they were just a couple months ago.
Yeah, it does, it is kind of,
Especially that one down at the floor there.
yeah. And that's it.
11:37.
Oh, I don't know.
When you can see me, my friend.
But I'll be around after the meeting if anyone has any questions.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
nice.
Okay. So moving along here, I have a couple of things. And one of which, as I mentioned in my meeting announcement, we've been looking for our fourth vice president, because we had that opening for a while. And I have located such a person, which is really nice too, because we've been hoping to get some younger people involved in the officers group. And somebody earlier tonight mentioned that they are the youngest person in the room. So it is my pleasure to nominate Dmitri as our second vice president. We have a report. All in favor? Is anybody opposed? Good, because I'd have beat you up.
Good to know that.
Dmitri.
Thank you.
Okay, since we're doing votes, this is also time for us to approve our donation to astronomy at the beach for this year. You might remember last year or the year before, we upped that to $500, but it's over our threshold. We can approve just to the officers, so I would entertain a motion to approve the $500 donation. We got support?
Support.
Okay. I think Doug was for it, actually. So, okay, with that, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, it's approved. And one last thing, and Kathy or Kurt Hill may want to say something real quick about it, but we have a club picnic coming up in August. And we now have a venue, and that is at the home of the Hillings, which is actually quite nice. And if it's clear that night, it's actually fairly dark out there too. So that's coming up, Dmitri.
You're asking what day in August?
Pardon me?
What day in August?
Be that third week, which is the,
16.
yes, yep, 16. Yep. Oh, go ahead, bring it up.
Doug Scoble couldn't make it tonight, but he sent a list of things. Charlie's covered all of them except the last one, which is to remind membership that he has to receive your astronomical league dues of $9 before the end of June if you want to renew or join. And he'll do a last call email in the next couple of days. But that's the rest for.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, with that, I do not see Don Foley here. Do I?
He's still on the road.
That's right. Yeah, he is traveling. But we do have Jack.
Okay. A few things to talk about, just I'll make it brief. Last month, we took a vote on buying the new Argo Davis for the observatory. Not go out and buy a new Argo Davis. Contacted and talked to 3 or 4 other people around here. Did talk to Eric Webster. And he informed me that they've been ordering groups of Argo Davis because the chips are made in China, part of them are made in Russia. They've been hit with some tariff on the Argo Davis. And he said the best thing for me would be to just call up our make a purchase to Wildcat in Australia. Servo Cat is being relocated. New guy that's got it in Chiefland, Florida. And someone used to sell it. They talk about using the Argo Navis. Other thing is, just to let you know something, I think some of you might remember this, but simulation curriculum makes Wi-Fi adapter that goes to Argo Navis controller. It's out of business. They're not going to make that anymore. Okay, so we've been using the Bluetooth unit in the observatory. And some of the other companies like Sidereal Technologies, they're using Bluetooth units too. So I will eventually call or send another letter out to Wildcat because they recommended using the Sky-Fi wireless controller. And I don't want to get into all that right now because they're not doing it big. And I want to know what they're recommending on their new units that you buy for them. Because all this is changing right now. I just called up some other people. You may know that there was a company selling servo, pardon me, a Sky wireless adapter. And that just, that company's website, it's not, they left it online, but you could not order from it. So I chased it down and found out that High Point Scientific is running the website. People at High Point, so we're not selling Sky-Fi Wi-Fi anymore either, but they wouldn't explain why they left that website up there. It's confusing as well. So I'm gonna get into that. It's been running in a lot of areas here that are changes coming down on the software. This Wi-Fi business, some of them, simulation sidereal technology, which Astro Systems has been using, and I'm not gonna get into that a lot, but their adapter is a Bluetooth adapter, not the same kind of Wi-Fi adapter, very quick. So some other changes coming down too. Now, I'll continue with that. Argo Navis later, because right now another situation come up. Just recently, last week, June 7th, I was at the observatory. We had one heck of a hard time getting the lock to work because that lock is being snapped off, broken. So if you know that already. So because we've got June 29th meeting coming up, open house, got the Michigan Math and Scholars, that open house coming up. Call them back on the 10th. I talked to Hernandez. Their people are out there. There's a property report. No, that's the door, observatory door, not the gate, observatory door. Right. That's the one that's always gets vandalized. Yeah.
See it dented where they kicked it even.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole bunch of, yeah. So she's gonna let me know. I couldn't go out there today if they were working on it because I had to deal with tree repair and stuff and move a bunch of other things. I got hit up camp with weather. But anyway, hopefully by over the weekend I'll find for her. Issue being, I'm hoping that the lock's replaced with the same cylinder mechanisms. If not, then we're gonna have to get new keys, but I've already taken that up with them that there's authorized people, so if you do, we're gonna get our new keys instead of waiting for weeks or months figuring out what to do and all that. So those things I have, it's been kind of going on. Other than that, that's all I have to say about the observatory. And now we get to the keys, I'll let you know. Yeah, Dmitri.
Question, so how often does that door get vandalized?
So many times per year because I'm not out there. I notice things about it. The door gets kicked in or the handle, like one time I found the handle broke sitting on the bottom. Okay.
Well, because I have a trail, with the, because I know which department of U of M manages that. Because I assume they'd be fine if we just put up a trail cam.
Well, trail cam we found, but problem with some of the trail cams, we don't have Wi-Fi access out there. Not all of them will work with that unless you have some kind of Wi-Fi access. But I did look into some, and I'm trying to find out. Some of the trail cams, out in the middle of nowhere, it's how they get the Wi-Fi access to them. Because the DNR and the rest of them don't have Wi-Fi portal or access there for them.
They just record for a certain amount of time and you have to get.
Yeah, that was.
Well,
There are cameras that basically check on the cell sites. You know, I've got a friend who's got one out in the middle of the island of the Front River, uses a cell phone connection. Talkbacks, you can watch it. In real
Okay.
time.
ours is the argument because the Wi-Fi connection is out there at the observatory. But if there was there. The reason I'm positive on it is because some of these guys are doing it, so I don't know if it's, we have to buy Wi-Fi hookup, which is considered a portable location or whatever like that. But we talked about that before, from some of the other ones, because they tried that out there. I'm not gonna get into that right now.
Or are you looking to just possibly get identification of these people, or are you looking for something where you can get a live feed and then you see something happening and call Pygmy PD and say, hey, there's some guys
Even
vandalizing.
if I wanted to do that, I'd still have to have some kind of Wi-Fi or
Yeah,
self-service.
so like if you just
Either
wanted
way,
to-
I don't have it out there, that's the problem.
Yeah, but even if you just wanted to ID, even if you just wanted to ID a person, you wouldn't need Wi-Fi for that, you just need a closed system with the SD card, which you could pull out of it.
Well, that's provided, I don't want to, I've left it on all the time, because out there you don't know, so.
Okay, so you should have a motion sensor, it won't start recording unless they.
Well,
They got-
there you go.
Yeah.
Or because you can look into, but having the cell phone there, or I mean, some kind of Wi-Fi there, because I don't live out there, so I got a call, Ann Arbor Police, and then I want that camera. Only because I've done that before, and I've got pictures.
I wouldn't call it ever, I'd call Pygmy, but,
Well,
or you could put a little magnet on the door, which is just like smiling, right?
Don't, yeah, that's always.
Fake camera idea.
There is the fake camera.
Yeah.
Do they really want to feel that lucky?
Okay, I'm not gonna extend this anymore. I'm gonna turn it back over to
Okay, thank you, Chad. Ken?
I have no report.
Cool, thank you for taking the minutes. And that leaves us with Jeff.
We got a rather lengthy email. And basically the university's web service that our old website uses, it's not targeting us directly, it doesn't actually affect us, but they're looking for when sites get compromised with security or something like that. And they're going to shut them off and move you off of AFS. Some of the other fine print down below basically indicates that they're trying to retire AFS, which is the file storage. So it's kind of the writing is on the wall. We made the right move a year ago to go off to another service and start with this new website. We're partially way moving our data over right now, but because of this. On June 30th, they're gonna start scanning and watching the logs even closer, so we figured, I figured it's like, let's get a snapshot done on our website. So all the files we have right now are backed up on, one of my laptops and on a USB key, so all of our data is safe. No matter what they do to AFS, if it blows up, goes away, whatever. That's the development for today, but the wording kind of puts us on notice that things are probably going to be winding down at the site. So that's my big news. The other thing is just a reminder on the July 11th, which I think I did my spiel earlier. I got some info sheets if you want to take them home if you're interested in planetary processing. I'm not going to be any kind of expert, just to get you the basics and get you going. I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you. And Brian, I thought sent a chat saying that he had company over and had to be out of the meeting, but I still see him online. Are you still there, Brian? Anything you want to report or? Must just left it open, so. Anybody have anything else? Wow. And we meet our goal of getting done by 9:30. Motion to adjourn. Okay, support. Thank you very much. And just a reminder too, next year we are over at Eastern Michigan University.
Next month.
One of our favorite meetings, and that's the one we have pizza and pop and cookies and stuff.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Charlie, you said next year, is that next month?
Next month, yes.
Yeah.